everybody, it's Romania Black, and we only have, sadly, 2 more weeks of Volume 5 of Heaven Official's Blessing! We're on the penultimate set of chapters for Volume 5. We're going to be looking at chapters 167 to 169, and last week was pretty crazy. Last week was pretty crazy because there were a lot of revelations, a lot of mystery, a lot of questioning, a lot of not getting answers. As the Goshi of Shanla is working with the mountain spirits, seemingly to just jettison them to Mount Tonglu. We ain't gonna waste 10 years here. We're gonna do it in 2 days. We're gonna go straight to the kiln. And for something to happen, I don't know. That's been the one thing that, even going back and thinking about these last set of chapters, I was like, why? Why are we going to the kiln so fast? Why are we taking... I guess the big thing is, why are we helping Shilian in his goal? Because the Goshi of Shanla, you would think is an antagonist, but the whole goal that Shilian and Paiming and all of them have had is to get to the kiln. So they're helping them get to the kiln, but to what purpose? Why? I mean, and there's lots of questions. Thinking back, I've got the whole board over there with unanswered things in this series, and the big one being, is the Prince of Wuyong, who were they? Is it Bai Wusheng? Is it Shilian? Is it Hua Chong? The obvious answer is it was Shilian, and this is and Shilian is the reincarnation of the Wuyong Prince. That's the obvious answer. That is the one that makes the most sense right now. But I'm waiting for the MXTX twist. Like, it's not Shilian, but it's this person. I'm waiting for that twist. Like, who is it really? Is it Hua Chong? Hua Chong would be a great twist, that he was the Prince of Wuyong, and then he got reincarnated into this little boy who was born under the ominous star, and the Goshi of Shanla was like, nope, not repeating that mistake again. Look at this great prince we have now. Why would we want you? Again, we've already been through that. So that is the big question. Who is it? And I just couldn't wait. I was like, I need to find out. Do I think we're going to find out in Volume 5? No, I think this is a mystery that's going to carry over into Volume 6 for whatever it's worth. But we've got basically 67, 68, 69, it's 3 chapters. We've had so many 4-chapter sets in this novel, I didn't do my math again. Pages 343 to 372. So we got about 30 pages worth of stuff, which is fine. And I feel like at this point in the story, there's just so much. I don't know how MXTX keeps track of it. Like, Girl's outline must have been like insanity, because how do you keep track of all these characters? There's so many characters unaccounted for that we still don't know. I mean, we have the whole board there, but we made it to one of the temples, and there's the rats that supposedly can speak in Wuyong, and Shilian understands them. Now, what that is going to tell us this set of chapters, I don't know, but there's no manhwa this week, so I think the manhwa is going to come out next Saturday. I'm recording this the Saturday before, so I will probably hold off, if I can, for the last set of chapters until next Saturday to read it and be able to do the manhwa as well. So that's probably what we're going to do, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll be patient, I guess. Maybe. Who knows? Or I won't. And we'll do... Either we're going to do the manhwa next week when we end Volume 5, or we'll do the next manhwa chapter when we start Volume 6. One of the two. One of the two. We'll see. We'll see how this set of chapters goes and if Romania can wait or not. But yeah, so I'm pretty excited. We got 2 comments before we start, though, and dive into this. The first one is from Miss Angel, who talked about how there's a really cool comparison between Yin Yu and Qi Ying to Ling Wen and Bai Jing. And I totally agree with that. I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Ling Wen and Yin Yu seem to have a lot in common, which both in terms of kind of their personalities, in terms of them kind of being, overworked and underappreciated as heavenly officials. And also I like the idea that both of them have this kind of, you could say romantic interest, or at least an interest in these two martial gods, or, well, the Brocade Immortal wasn't a martial god, but could have been. But both these kind of meatheads, in a sense. I love Qing. I hate to call Qing a meathead because he's a sweet little cinnamon bun. But they're both like these battle-hardy, martial god-oriented characters that are all very brawn. Very brawn. Ling Wen and Yin Yu are the brains. Qiying and Bai Jing seem to be the brawn. So I like that they're both two sets of characters that are both kind of very similar in their compatibility and their characters. Really cool. And also, I love that Yin Yu, the waning moon officer, Yin Yu is representative of the moon, and Qiying is this big ball of sunlight and energy, so it's the sun and the moon. I'm a sucker. I'm a hardcore sucker for a sun and moon comparison. I'm just like, oh no, that's beautiful. I love it. It's poetry. It's great. And that is literally Yin Yu and Qiying. All for it. So yes. And then Anime Annie talked about a couple things. One, can we all just say that Hua Chong's ability to do background checks on every character he comes in contact with is OP as hell? Like, could he go into Jun Woo's backstory if he wanted to? Not that he wants to. He's probably like, no, stay away from this guy. But he could. That's such an OP power. And there is a part of me at this point in the story, knowing that Hua Chong is literally a Swiss Army knife of abilities, whether it's the butterflies or this ability to like create date movie night, that makes me wonder, how did Hua Chong get to the point where he could be this strong and this OP? Like, how? How is it possible? And I'm assuming we know just enough about Hua Chong at this point in the story, but we don't know everything about Hua Chong. So I'm assuming we got 3 volumes to go. We're going to learn about him more and his backstory eventually. So there is that kind of, but at this point in the story, when we're seeing all of these amazing things he can do, and Shilian's like, wow, you're pretty invincible. I'm like, yeah, he is pretty invincible. How did this happen? Is this all Supreme Ghost? Because I don't know if Heshan has this ability. If he did, it would solve a lot of things for him, but okay. So yeah, it's interesting, right? I guess that's what you get for being the Ghost King. And then also, I liked Anime Annie on Patreon, their comment talking about how, yeah, Xuan Yu is responsible for a lot of the problems that happened back in that set of chapters with Qiying's backstory. But Yin Yu did make a lot of mistakes. I gave Yin Yu a lot of praise because he was compassionate, he was nice, and he was giving Qiying a lot more humanity and humility than most of the other characters were. But he still did some things wrong. He could have explained some things better in a lot of ways, and he missed the mark on a lot. And I think that Yin Yu knows that. I think that's the problem in the present, is that Yin Yu knows he made a lot of mistakes, and he's kind of embarrassed to be around Qiying because he knows that Qiying doesn't care. He knows Qiying loves him anyway, and he's just like, but I've been so awful to you. Do you not understand? And Qiying's like, but I like you, Xizhong. And it's like, the most adorable and precious. Also, a good note, I am from a Western upbringing in America, so my upbringing is like, I'm used to the first name that we see being the first name and not the surname. So I was under the impression that Xuan Yu and Yin Yu were brothers or relatives, because the first name I saw was different, but the second name was similar. No, it's basically like if you imagine 2 people named Brian. Essentially, Xuan Yu and Yin Yu is like if you had Brian Smith and Brian McConnell. They're both named Brian, but they are clearly not related because they have different last names. So, glad we cleared the air on that. They're from the same sect, from the same clan, 2 different people. They just happen to have the same first name. People were really unoriginal in the village. So yes, my dogs are being the most ridiculous right now, and they're going to have to just deal with me because I'm about to read chapters 167 through 169 of Heaven Official's Blessing. So real quick, I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. You all are so kind, so supportive, and I am so grateful for everything that y'all do. So a real quick shout out. There's all these names over here. They are so amazing. They go above and beyond each month to help me, and I'm very thankful for all the patrons and YouTube subscribers as well. Y'all are kicking ass, taking names, being awesome. So thank you. But special shout out to Edgar, to Dana, to Alex Cornejo, to Kiri, to Be Happy, to Librarian of Lang, to Truck, to Shimoyama, to Nameless Monster, to Natalia Zaharia to Modern Amethyst, as well as Tyrone, Anime Annie, Eric, Sunspots, Kuba Lutek, Translucent Min, Legatus, and Anna. Thank you all so much. You all are amazing, and I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. I want some answers. We ended the last episode with the corpse-eating rats speaking in the Wuyong language that Shilin could understand. And he's like, why can I understand this tongue? And Hua Chong clearly cannot, so what's going on? So I'm excited to hear what we get out of this. But I poured myself some coffee this morning, and I was like, oh yes. Heaven Official's blessing it is. So we are going to start that and just see what we get. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. As my dogs go. And let's begin. Chapter 167. The Jealous Ghost King. Ooh, Hua Chong jealous. What? 3 questions on where the friendship lies. Now don't be doing this story. Do not. I'm like, okay, look, we have been doing real good. Don't you be making Hua Chong get jealous and leaving Shilian. I don't think he'd ever do that, but I'm like, don't you be splitting our crew up. No. We've gotten this far. Don't you dare. Hua Chong had used his own deductive skills and learning capabilities to learn the Wuyong language. He could decipher the meaning of the words, but because there wasn't anyone alive who could read those words aloud to him, he couldn't match the words with the sounds. Which meant he couldn't understand the muttering chatter of those corpse-eating rats. But Shi Lian, who had never visited Mount Tonglu before, understood. So what did this mean? With just a glance, Hua Chong could guess what Shi Lian was thinking. He immediately said, Gege, don't panic just yet. I'll repeat those words to you now. Give it a listen. Okay, Shilian said. Hua Chong's memory was exceptional, and once they left where the corpse-eating rats were gathering, I like that they got out of there, he immediately repeated the words clearly. Shilian stared at him nervously and heard a series of moderately paced and somewhat bizarre pronunciations. Those strange words had an ancient rhythm to them, and to have them enunciated steady and controlled through Hua Chong's lips, the notes were deep and beautiful, pleasing to the ears. Oh my God, Shilian's like not even paying attention to understanding the language. She's just like, oh, your voice is so beautiful. After concentrating on the words for a moment, Shilian said, I don't understand it. Now this was strange. He could understand the words those corpse-eating rats spewed, but now that Hua Chong recited these same words, he couldn't understand them. But it was impossible. What had happened was a delusion. Hua Chong questioned, earlier when you heard those voices, you understood them instantly and knew very naturally what they were saying, right? Right, there was never a translation process in my brain, which was why he didn't realize it was a different language. I get it, Hua Chong said. What did you get? What you understood wasn't the Wuyong tongue, but the emotions of those who died. Oh. Shilian understood, but at the same time didn't. Like, I love that Shilian and this entire part is literally us. Yeah, Hua Chong explained further, which means a long time ago, someone heard the voices of the dead, understood them, and remembered them, and then somehow transplanted this memory to you, infected you with those emotions. Because that person already knew the Wuyong tongue, you didn't need to know the language. Those voices had always been buried deep within your mind, and the moment you heard them, you were dragged into those emotions directly. Ha! I see, Shilian said, but the problem is who could pass those memories and emotions to me, and when did they do this? The Goshi. However, Hua Chong said, well, can't be sure. Gege, you're already assuming your master is from Wuyong, but have you ever thought that if that's the case, then before we were in the stomach of the mountain spirit, shouldn't they have been communicating in the Wuyong tongue? Why weren't they? This wasn't hard to explain. Shilian said, well, because the kingdom of Wuyong was destroyed 2,000 years ago, which means in the past 2,000 years, if they really did move about in this world, then they would likely use the modern language. So when they communicate, they would very naturally use the language they're more fluent in. Hua Chong gripped his shoulders, his tone growing harsher. Gege, don't keep making yourself think in that direction. Hua Chong is very adamant that Shilian not think this way about something. So he knows something. He knows something, but he's not telling Shilian for reasons, right? But then, yeah, who implanted this memory? What? Shilian finally turned back to face him. Fine, then San Long. In order to transplant memories and emotions to one another, What kind of requirements must there be, usually? Hua Chong answered, 2 requirements. First, you must trust this person absolutely without any guard, and should there be a need, have a willingness to be led by this person. After a brief moment of contemplation, Shilian had picked the candidates in his mind. Hua Chong continued, second, you are powerless to retaliate against this person. They have the power to oppress you completely, and you hold deep fear towards them. Gege, think carefully, in these years, who matches those requirements? He contemplated for a while, and after some hesitation, he answered slowly, there are 3 in total. Very good. Which 3? The first one is Goshi. Although he loved his parents deeply and never guarded against them, deep in his heart, he knew that he and his father walked different paths. Thus, he couldn't say he was willing to be led by his father. However, Goshi, who took him in and taught him everything, matched the first requirement. This was expected. He asked then the second one. Junwoo, Shilian answered. He admired and respected Junwoo immensely. No need to speak more on the subject. Thus, he also fulfilled the first requirement. I mean, yeah, we're just like, nope, we got it. Hua Chong didn't look to be too impressed, but he didn't comment. He's like, oh, him? That old thing? And the last one, the third one doesn't match the first requirement, but the second one. He understood. He said darkly, the white no-face. Oh, give me more! Give me more! He closed his eyes and nodded, his hand covering his front. I won't lie to you. Even though in front of everyone I might not have revealed this, even to Feng Shen and Mu Qing back then, I had never said anything dispiriting, but I actually, deep in his heart, he deeply feared that creature. There was a period of time when even just hearing the name would make him tremble nonstop. However, Shilian never dared to allow anyone to see, because he was the very hope in fighting White No-Face. Oh, even if he was scared, then wouldn't everyone else fall into despair? If that should happen, then everything would collapse. Oh, are we getting into the second ascension and all that? Of course, everything was much better now. Hua Chong gripped his shoulders even harder. It's nothing. It's nothing shameful to be afraid of something. Shilian gave a small flickering smile. I'm just not brave enough, that's all. Hua Chong comforted. You don't need to be so hard on yourself. Without fear, there is no courage. Oh, he was slightly taken aback. Hua Chong continued without pause. So is it only those 3? Shilian nodded, which meant someone among those 3 was the one who instilled the memories and emotions of the Wuyong people when the volcano erupted. Hua Chong mused, his brows furrowing his brows. After a moment of silence, Shilian suddenly spoke up. That's not all of them. What? I said it's not only those 3. There's a 4th person. This person matches the first requirement, but he has nothing to do with those memories and emotions. Oh? How so? Does your highness and this person also share many years of deep friendship? Not so many years, Shilian thought, but a deep friendship. He thought it counted, but he was too embarrassed to say it out loud, so he replied ambiguously. In any case, he might be the one I trust the most, even more so than my master in Junwoo. I was waiting for Hua Chong to weasel his way in here. How does that count? Hua Chong said. I'm embarrassed to say. It's embarrassing to say because if I were to commit a grave mistake or get into big trouble, the first one I think of is surely him. And this trust is not quite the same as what I have for my master and the emperor. Before he even finished, he noticed Hua Chong's expression was off, and he trailed off. So long. Only then did Hua Chong come to, and he raised his brows. Oh, it's nothing. I was just thinking of something else. Your Highness really trusts this person so much. Although usually when he raised his brows, he was at ease or teasing, this time it didn't seem natural. Is there a problem? His brows furrowed slightly, fixed the silver vambrances by his sleeves and said, appearing nonchalant, oh, nothing major, but a personal opinion. It's best if Gege doesn't trust others so easily. Ooh. Hearing him, Shilian couldn't be sure if Hua Chong had figured out who he was talking about and didn't dare to reveal any more, so he only, After a pause, he couldn't hold back and asked, San Long isn't going to ask who this person is? Me? Hua Chong said, since Gege said you trust him and is determined that he has nothing to do with this affair, then there's no need to ask. Shilian rubbed his forehead, and soon after Hua Chong said, but if Gege wants to tell me, San Long is happy to listen. Although his words sounded proper, if Shilian followed along and told him now, it'd be awkward, like he was begging people to ask who he trusted the most. Shilin couldn't tell whether it was just courtesy or Hua Chong really didn't care. Coincidentally, right then, the wraith butterflies that had been engaged in a bloody carnage with the corpse-eating rats had returned. After going through a strenuous battle, the silver butterflies were flying a little low, like they were dragging with fatigue. Shilin quickly went up to greet them, reaching out to catch a particularly tiny silver little butterfly. He said, "Thanks for your hard work." And is this my way out of this awkward conversation? Because he doesn't want to admit that it's Hua Chong that he trusts the most. And Hua Chong is like, oh, you shouldn't trust me. Ooh, okay. Because he's hiding something. Yeah, all those words sounded proper. Here we go. Now he's done it. The butterflies paused in the air, and the next second, it was like they smelled a delicious pastry, and they all charged towards him like mad. So the butterflies are part of Hua Chong as well. Shilian still had the little silver butterfly cupped in his hand and was stunned. Hua Chong gave a calm cough. And the butterflies paused again. Then they flied towards him properly, landing on the silver vambrances on his arms, becoming one with the engraved butterfly patterns. Oh, so they come out of his metal cuffs there. Oh, that's so cool. Okay. The two continued to search for Yin. After a while, Hua Chong suddenly spoke up. It's not function. Oh, you know who it is! How dare you! He said, what? The person Gege spoke of. Oh, of course not. It's not Mu Qing either, is it? A drop of sweat rolled down Shilian's forehead. Oh, that's even more impossible. But why is San Long suddenly asking about this again? He smiled. I thought about it and suddenly felt the fourth person is the most suspicious. So to prevent any surprises, will Gege please tell me who this person you trust the most is and shared many years of deep friendship with? Shilian watched the smile on his face and had a gut feeling the smile was very fake. Just as he inhaled deeply and was about to speak, the faint silver light from the scouting silver butterflies disappeared. Oh, come on now! Now we know it's Hua Chong, right? We know it's him that he trusts the most. MXTX. Darkness fell all around, and Hua Chong swiftly seized Shilian's hand and blitzed to the side of the street. Shilian could tell something was wrong. San Long, something's coming, isn't it? Even though darkness had come so suddenly and nothing could be seen, he still followed Hua Chong's steps closely and flawlessly, hopped into a house to hide. It's here. Within the darkness, there was suddenly a very peculiar sound. Dong, dong, dong. Even though it was far away, each drag sounded exceedingly heavy, and with every sound, it sounded much closer than before, its speed astounding. Shilian kept thinking the sound was familiar, that he'd definitely heard it before. When the sound was close, he looked outside. Sure enough, on the main streets of the underground city, a woman dressed in wedding robes appeared. While that woman was donned in a wedding robe, the robe itself was ragged and shredded, chillingly gloomy. Although her face was handsomely beautiful, there was no sign of life. The glowing green ghost fire on top of her head also made her blanched face shine green. In her arms cradled a small child whose face was also pale, but who was much livelier than her, obviously a live human, bumping into old friends again. It was Xuan Ji and Guzi! Oh! The female ghost Xuan Ji and Guzi. Wait! But why has Xuan Ji got Guzi? Oh my god, wait, no! Oh, no, Peiming's ex has Guzi? Why? Wait, is this Beetlejuice? Is Qirong getting married to Xuan Ji? What is happening? What? Chapter 168, Ghostfire Top, the unlocking incantation. What? They'd come to Mount Tonglu as well. Guzi's here. Does that mean Qirong has come too? Look at the ball of green light on top of her head. There's no doubt he has. Guzi seemed to be a little afraid of Xuan Ji, his little form still and unmoving in her arms. However, perhaps it was because Xuan Ji's body was cold and it wasn't comfortable. He still secretly wiggled a couple times. Xuan Ji instantly admonished him, don't move. The moment she opened her mouth, with the glow of that ball of green ghost fire, the muscles of her face appeared even more twisted. That ghost fire was considered a hallmark sign of the green ghost at this point, exceedingly poor in taste. And Shilian felt that any female ghost who had normal taste and valued their own image would refuse to wear such a flashy ball of green ghost fire over their heads. Needless to say, it must have been Qirong who made her wear it. The green flames and the wedding robes formed a shocking sight, attacking the eyes, even more despairing than if a master was to force one to wear an extremely ugly uniform. Yeah, it's like Christmas colors, but it clashes. Guzi pleaded, his eyes brimming with tears. Jeje, my tummy doesn't feel good after drinking that water. Water? Shilian broke out in a cold sweat. That underground water had flocks of corpse-eating rats swimming through it. Oh, although it might not be toxic, children had weaker constitutions and might get diarrhea after drinking it. Xuan Ji was obviously the type who didn't like children and had no patience for him. Hang on for a bit, we're already on our way back. Their backs disappeared and they became one with the darkness. No need to say any more. Shilian and Huachong quietly trailed after them. Soon after, following Xuan Ji, they turned a few corners and entered another main street. At the end of the street was a particularly lavish house. And there were voices coming from within. That must be their destination. Under the guise of the shadows, Shilian and Huachong charged forward first and hopped onto the roof of that house and through the cracks peered inside. Sure enough, Qirong was sitting at the center of the grand hall of the mansion. He's just always at the center of houses and buildings and mansions. It's just like he has to be lavish even though he's complete dumpster fire. Oh my god, I can't believe he's here! He had carried over a dozen stone statues, their heads facing them. Because those stone people were all sprawled on the floor, they looked like they were in complete submission towards him. Well, I mean, he thus enjoying this prostration and munching on an arm, looking quite pleased with himself. In the corner sat several farmers, one of them with his head bowed, having particularly no sense of presence, was Yin Yu! Oh! As they suspected, he'd been captured by Qirong. Wait, the farmers! Oh, are those the ones that the Rainmaster's looking for? Oh! And Yin Yu's there! As they suspected, he'd been captured by Qirong, although no one was bound by ropes. There were balls of greasily green ghost fires hovering over every one of their heads. Upon closer inspection, the ghost fires were different than the flashy one on top of Xuan Ji's head. These had grown all 5 senses. Their eyes narrowed downwards, their expressions malicious, looking like wicked wretches. They were all firmly watchful of the person below. Shilian whispered, those balls of fires must have something to them. Huachong replied, that's Qirong's ghost fire lock. Once that fire eyes you, if you dare escape, it will activate a spell and you'll be burned to death in an instant. Qirong was fully enjoying munching on that arm when Xuan Ji's voice suddenly rang from the outside. My lord, I've returned. He immediately threw that arm away and wiped his blood-covered mouth. Shilian was slightly amazed. What was that gesture? Afraid someone might see? Could there actually come a day when Qirong was embarrassed that someone might see the manner in which he ate? Oh no, I don't like where this is headed. Before Xuan Ji entered, she put Guzi down and Guzi ta-ta-ta ran in, rushing straight to Qirong's side. But when he saw him, he pointed his finger. He cried, Daddy is eating bad things in secret again. I am not, Qirong retaliated. I smelled it. Your mouth reeks when you eat it, Guzi accused. Qirong raised his hand and puffed a couple breaths against his palm. He must have smelled his mouth reeking of the stench of blood and rot. Without any way to deny it, he became irritated. Oh, God damn it, Xuan Ji! Why'd you bring him back all of a sudden? Didn't I say to take him around a bit longer while I'm eating? Xuan Ji floated in and explained he was making a fuss over a tummy ache after drinking water, so I brought him back early. My lord, please don't make me take care of children anymore. I don't know how to deal with him. Qirong glared and accused, What? Aren't you a female ghost? How can female ghosts not like taking care of children? But this isn't even my own child, Xuan Ji countered. Oh, he's sexist too. What a dumpster fire. Guzi tugged at Qirong's hem. Dad, don't eat those things anymore. They're not good for you. Qirong was growing annoyed by his nagging and reprimanded. Well, go. Don't hang around here to annoy people. What is this? Kids nagging grown-ups. Go out and go play by yourself. In Mount Tonglu! And so Guzi could only drag his feet and go out to play in the mud by himself. Before he left, he even glanced sadly at the others in the house. Aw! Only when he was gone did Xuan Ji speak up. My lord, I really don't understand. Why must you bring him along if you think he's annoying? He's been hungry, thirsty, and teary, and sickly the entire way. If it wasn't for bumping into that mountain spirit who carried us, who knows if he'd still be slowing us down. Qirong laughed wryly. My cheap son is determined to call me dad, so just let him. What rubbish. Of course it's because I'm going to eat that little dumb pecker. A little kid's meat is so tender, even without seasoning it'll be flavorful enough. Then why haven't you eaten him yet? Green light flashed in Qirong's eyes. You don't understand anything. I'll kill him after he's fattened. Leave him be best for last. Besides, we still have so many supplies left. No need to rush. Shilian stared at Yin Yu. Xuan Ji stared at Yin Yu. I think this new one you captured is very suspicious. Very, very suspicious. My lord, did you find out exactly where he came from? Judging by how much Qirong hated Hua Chong, if he knew Yin Yu was Hua Chong's subordinate, he would have immediately eaten him. Qirong replied, yeah, I got it. That bastard came with the Rainmaster to help too. A weak sense of presence and a flat personality was sometimes a good thing. People usually wouldn't link Yin Yu and the Crimson Rainsop flower together. It seemed Yin Yu had successfully lied about his own identity. Shilian sighed a breath of relief, and Xuan Ji's face, however, dropped. Yushi Huang has already chased us here? Oh, Yushi Huang, the last leader of Yushi. Oh, Huang, so it's similar to Hua. Interesting. Nah, Qirong said. This bastard found this underground city by accident, same as us. The Rainmaster hasn't found us yet. Fucking damn it, he suddenly cussed. Why is the Rainmaster so hard to deal with? So hot on our trail that we had to come and hide here. We only grabbed a couple of farmers from the country to eat. Why so stingy? A heavenly official, too. I just knew none of those heavenly officials are any good. So narrow-minded and miserly. He'd always cause others harm first and act all self-important after. You were the first one who'd wretchedly grabbed someone else's farmers who'd been minding their own business, but then you had to turn around and scorn others for not being generous enough to provide you with a few more. His speech made Shilian's fists itch. Yes! Why don't we just release those people, Xuan Ji said. Qirong, however, seemed to have thought the very idea embarrassing. He glared, no! I already ate half of them, so even if I released the other half, it'd be pointless. Force my hand and this ancestor will burn them all to the ground. No one will benefit from this. Oh, we're going to talk about this. Oh my God. I didn't think things would turn out like this either. The Yushi Huang I knew, so easy to bully, wasn't like this in the past. I thought that even if we kidnapped people from Yushi country, everything would just be swept under the rug and the insult swallowed. It was the only reason I dared to make such a move. Who knew this would stir up so much trouble? Completely unshakable. Xuan Ji actually knew the Rainmaster and didn't seem to hold that master in high regard. It seemed they probably knew each other when they were still mortals. I mean, this is around the time when Pei Ming and they were probably fighting Yushi country, so yes, okay. Thinking back on all the legends, Shilian whispered, could it be that Xuan Ji used to be a general of the kingdom of Yushi? Oh, she's the one that sold them out to Pei Ming! Oh! Gege guessed right, Hua Chong said. That is exactly the case. Shilian was puzzled, but that's not right. Lord Rainmaster is a descendant of Yushi royalty with a prestigious status. Xuan Ji was only a general, a lowly official, so how dare she look down on her monarch and even say something like easy to bully? Just then, Qirong replied, who cares what the Rainmaster, Dogmaster? Just wait till this ghost king cultivates to a supreme status in the kiln. Oh, he does want to go to the kiln! I'll be born with so much might, I'll shock the heavens, and everyone will have to fall at my feet, kneel before me, and eat mud at my feet. Then I'll tear the ghost city down, sink that Blackwater Island, and even Jun Woo will have to be careful where he treads. You are delusional, Qirong! Listening to him make up so much bull, happily imagining his future might, other than wanting to laugh, Shilian felt nothing. Hua Chong, on the other hand, didn't even want to spare the energy to laugh. Qirong said more to Xuan Ji, then I'll chop off Pei Ming's cock for you to play with, and I'll make him your slave. Oh, hearing that name, Xuan Ji clenched her fists, a trace of life flashing on her pale face. No need! As long as my lord promises to give him to me, for me to handle him myself, Xuan Ji will be plenty grateful. That's why they're working together. Well, look at that. Look at that. Am I shipping these two? Maybe. When it didn't concern Pei Ming, Xuan Ji looked like a somewhat normal female ghost, but the moment General Pei was mentioned, Shilian could see a shadow of that mad and obsessed female ghost from Mount Yuzhun. She had actually placed that absurd hope on Qirong, a move that could only be described as crazy. Of course, they could just go indirectly and beat up Qirong and Xuan Ji, but those farmers in Yunyu were hostages. Qirong was thuggish in character. If with every punch they threw he burned a person, then they'd be the ones at a loss. Just as he said, if they forced his hand, he could very well burn everyone to the ground. Hua Chong wasn't the least bit anxious and said, "There's an unlocking incantation to Qirong's ghost fire locks. Let's think of a way to trick it out of him first." "Well, who will do this? How to trick him? We certainly can't be the ones," Shilian said. Just as the words left his lips, their eyes fell at the same time on Guzi, who was playing in mud outside the mansion. After a momentary pause, Shilian said that won't do. It's too dangerous. Qirong's already thinking of eating Guzi. What if he catches the deceit? Whether that brain of his can register tricks aside, Hua Chong said, if he plans on doing anything to the child, we can just go ahead and rescue him. Why doesn't Gege worry instead whether this child, having stayed by Qirong for so long, has been influenced by him and whether his mental state is still normal? Having followed Qirong for so long, it really was hard to say whether he had turned monstrous. Let's give it a try then. This is bringing up a good point. Thus, Hua Chong opened his fingers flat and released a teeny tiny silver butterfly from his palm. It fluttered down languidly. Qirong and Xuan Ji were still talking inside the house, and Guzi was outside drawing pictures in the mud, a picture of a big person holding hands with a little person. Suddenly he saw a silver butterfly emitting a faint silver light. He instantly looked up, his eyes wide, and was just about to go, "Wow!" when a whisper of a voice came from the silver butterfly. "Guzi, don't speak. The moment you speak, I'll be no more. It's me. Do you remember me?" If Guzi still yelled, Hua Chong would have had that silver butterfly confound his mouth. However, Guzi covered his own mouth, indeed obedient. He whispered back, "I remember. It's the scrap-collecting Gege's voice." "Oh, what a good memory you have." Shilian laughed awkwardly. "That's right, that's me, the scrap-collecting guy. Sneak over here to the side for a moment. Don't let your dad notice." Guzi nodded. He rose to his feet and was just about to sneak away when Qirong, who was inside the house, noticed. "Hey! Don't run away so blindly, you hear me? Stay here and don't go anywhere. The big rats will get you. Get back here." Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Ghost Fire Top, the unlocking incantation 2. That silver butterfly instantly flew to the side and hid. Guzi's wise-eyed. "I'm going to pee." Qirong clicked his tongue. Kids are so full of shit and piss. Then he stopped caring. Guzi fumbled aside and whispered again, "Scrap Gege, Scrap Gege." Shilian was still on the roof. "Just Dao Zhong's fine. Scrap Gege is a little weird." "Guzi, those people your dad captured are very pitiful. They're subordinates from someone else's household, and their master will keep chasing your dad to beat him up. Will you help us let them go?" "I know," Guzi said. "They're from the house of that god riding the big black ox." He scratched his head. "I want to let them go, too, but my dad is sick. He said he had to eat human flesh to get better. That eating human flesh is very normal. I'm still young. He'll teach me how to eat it when I'm bigger. I don't think that's very good." Oh my god, it's more than just not very good. That was a close call, Shilian thought. Staying too long by Qirong's side, Guzi was starting to go astray. If he continued to go down the wrong path, maybe he'd recognize everything as normal out of habit and accept that eating human flesh was a very normal belief. Shilian said quickly, "Oh, it's not very good. Eating human flesh will cause a very severe illness. The ghosts of the eaten will all cling to you and your dad, harassing you day and night. Your dad isn't sick. He's just a glutton who refuses to stop. You have to think of a way to stop him from ever eating that again. Otherwise, you'll become a fatherless child." "Well, then what should I do?" "Gege, let me." He said a few words to the silver butterfly, and Guzi listened on the other end, trying hard to remember everything. Once he was done, Hua Chong looked up again. He told Shilian, "Let's lead Xuan Ji out of the way first." Inside the house, Xuan Ji said, "I still think this man is suspicious. He said that he's Yushi Huang's subordinate, but he's covered with the essence of evil. I don't think he's truthful at all. I'll question him some more." After seeing Guzi scurrying off, Qirong turned around with that back facing the door and continued to munch on that arm, replying vaguely, "Sure." That Xuan Ji would go crazy when running into Pei Ming aside. Other times she was much more detailed and cautious than Qirong, being a woman after all. Besides, Guzi was still a little scared of her, so with her around, he might trip up easier. Shilian nodded. "How do we lead her away?" The two exchanged looks and said at the same time, "General Pei." Shilian put his hands together in a prayer. "There's no other way. We'll have to have him temporarily sacrifice himself. General Pei, everyone will thank you after they're saved." Oh my god! Another silver butterfly materialized from the engravings on Hua Chong's silver vambrants and flew next to Shilian's ear. The voice of a man came floating, and it was Pei Ming. Turns out, just before Xuan Ji went away earlier, he'd still left behind a few silver butterflies, and the voices of the other side were sent over. Shilian listened intently for a bit. He whispered, let's cut this bit up and use these lines. Oh, they're gonna, send off a recording of Pei Ming's voice to lure her away. Uh-huh. Shilian's back was facing the window, even eyeing Yin Yu like a hawk, interrogating him. Yin Yu answered tranquilly, in Yushi country, I'm responsible for taking care of the lost hungry ghosts. When they come knocking, I would gift them a bundle of rice and send them on their way, which is why I'm covered in the essence of evil. Ah, okay. The other hostages were the true farmers of Yushi country, and while they certainly were such relief givers, he was definitely not one of them. They knew he was making things up, but no one made a sound. Shirong chortled, I'm a hungry ghost too, why don't you give me some relief? Only a couple people were eating and I'm being chased to death. What's with this cheapskate pretending to be generous? Xuan Ji, on the other hand, only scorned the comment with disdain. There's so many hungry ghosts in the world. How can you bring relief to all? It's just for show. Just then a silver butterfly with light concealed soundlessly flew to behind her person and then flashed and hid. All the captives saw, but they were very composed. With an unspoken understanding, everyone pretended they didn't see anything. Xuan Ji was about to continue with the interrogation when suddenly she seemed to have heard the voice of a man. If that's the case, these first. Do you any more give here? The original line was, if that's the case, roast those rats first. Do you have any more snakes? Give some here. Oh my God! When Shilian first heard Pei Ming say, he was both full of shock and pity. There must have been corpse-eating rats taken to be normal rats that had crawled over and were killed by Pei Ming to be served as Pei Su's meal. Oh, would eating a rat truly cause no problems? It seemed they'd have to hurry back soon. Oh, poor Pei Su! However, after Wachong blurred some of the words from the line, the effect was mysterious, like it meant something, but what couldn't exactly be said. When Xuan Ji heard, she shuddered violently and whipped her head around. However, the silver butterfly was cunningly agile. It wasn't emitting light, and the moment she turned around, it had long since fluttered to the side and hid. She was shaken and turned back to question the captives. Did you all hear something just now? Did you see anything? Yin Yu took the lead, and the rest of the captains all shook their heads. Qirong looked over with his mouth covered in blood. What did you hear? I thought I heard Pei Ming's voice. You're probably delusional. I haven't heard anything. That silver butterfly was pressed closely to Xuan Ji, so no one else could hear the voices it was transmitting. Really? But I feel... Maybe he's close by. Maybe this is telepathy? My lord, why not let me go and take a look again? Shilian didn't think it'd be this easy and clenched his fist silently, flashing Huachong a smile. Yet unexpectedly, Qirong rained on his parade. Pfft, didn't you go once already? What telepathy? It's delusion for sure. You do nothing but think of him 800 times a day. Of course you're delusional. It appeared Xuan Ji was a little convinced by his words and remained there unsure. Even though this attempt was a failure, Shilian wasn't discouraged, because he had a few more lines up his sleeves. Xuan Ji was just about to continue her interrogation when she once again heard Pei Ming's voice. You little dummy, come here, I'll teach you. Soon after, it was a girl's voice. Oh, please, General Pei, I've done it once. I'm experienced now. Let me do it. Oh my God! Of course! This was Pei Ming instructing Banyo on how to roast corpse-eating rats for little Pei to eat. Oh, we are so going to talk about this. However, once the line fell in Xuan Ji's ear, it was understood as something completely different. She screeched, her eyes instantly filling with red, and the ghost fire on top of her head erupted. Like the jealous flames in her heart were blazing. She pulled at her own hair and screamed, oh, it's him for sure, he must be here. I sensed it, my heart sensed him. Pei Ming, I'm gonna kill you. She screamed as she dragged her 2 broken legs. Oh my God, she's got the broken legs, and jumped out the window. Qirong broke out into curses. Hey, oi! Xuan Ji, what the fuck? How can you run that fast with broken legs? Is that man whore really worth it? Oh my God! Shilian watched as Xuan Ji, stumbling and wobbling back, disappeared and felt somewhat mournful. Chong probably thought he was worried about the safety of those back at the temple. Oh, no need to worry. The Wraith Butterfly will lead her in the opposite direction. Even if she finds them, Rui is there to shield and she won't be able to enter the circle. Let's end our business here quickly. Now that Xuan Ji was gone, it was time for Guzi to enter stage. He rose to his feet and wiped his muddy hands on his butt. Shilian was still a little worried. Will it be all right? Wachong said softly, Gege, trust me. If this won't work, we can find another way. There are plenty of backup plans. If anything, we can make Qirong unable to speak for the rest of his life first, and then take our time thinking of an idea. Guzi entered the house, and Chirong had already licked clean all the blood on his hands. When he saw him, he called out, "A son! Come here and massage chop your daddy's legs!" Thus, Guzi went up to chop his legs. After chopping obediently for a while, he asked, "Dad, those people in the corner, how come they don't dare move even though they aren't bound by ropes?" His question energized Chirong. "Oh, of course, it's because they're so scared of your daddy that their legs get all wobbly." Guzi's mouth and eyes were wide open and round. "You were that amazing?" Chirong's vanity was greatly satisfied, and he replied, "Well, that's right. Look here. Today I'll show you just how amazing your daddy is. You see that ball of fire? The moment I give the command, whoosh, they'll all be burned to death, so of course they're afraid of me. And the other two little ghosts, remember them?" Guzi was nodding like a little chick pecking at grain. Chirong continued, "One is Hua Chong, and the other has the nickname Blackwater. They're two weak-ass nobodies. They're two wretches pretending to be great and got a little lucky, but in reality, their titles are hollow. Do you understand what a hollow title means? I'll teach you. It's an idiom. It means on the surface they look like they're powerful, but when it comes to true strength, they're nowhere near my level." Guzi looked like he understood, but at the same time not. "Oh." Chirong added, "They're just lucky. If I had their luck, I would be 10 times greater than they'll ever be. Just you wait. This time, your daddy will break through this trial and immediately beat them black and blue. No one will dare look down on me. Only I get to look down on other people." His determination was blazing, swinging his arms and hollering. And although Guzi did not totally understand who or what he was talking about, he cheered keenly, "Oh, you can do it, Dad!" On top of the roof, Shilian slapped a hand to cover his face. Chirong's speech of greatness really made him speechless. Thinking that Chirong was his little cousin, he felt really embarrassed and turned to Hua Chong. "So along this, in truth, throughout history, there was no man in the world who didn't love bragging. A breeze could blow the handkerchief of a brothel girl into a man's hand, and he would turn around and say the most beautiful of renowned escorts had fallen in love with him. Holding shoes and wiping benches for the emperor's mistresses, uncles, grandsons, cousins, mistress would for sure become him being the most important administrator at the residence of royal relatives, raising his status, and thus, men who didn't brag were a rare species. As for men who loved to brag, first, they loved to brag to women. Second, they loved to brag to their sons. Shilian recalled that when he was young, his father also frequently used various discreet and indiscreet ways to tell him of his heroism and greatness in politics. This was also precisely why, when he was young, he deeply believed his father to be a noble and valiant ruler, whose name would no doubt go down in history. Later, when he found out the truth, it wasn't the greatest timing, which is why there was a feeling of, "You're not that amazing after all," leaving him greatly disappointed. Thinking of this, Shilian shook his head and thought it funny. Why would I compare Chirong with my father? That really was out of the blue. Perhaps because they both loved to make themselves bigger than they were. However, whether it be his father or someone else, at least the vaunting was with normal parameters. Chirong had reached the stage of absolute shamelessness and righteous impudence. No wonder that even Blackwater, who had always kept a low profile, was disgusted with him and would find any excuse to beat him up if they should meet. But Shilian was still puzzled. How come he only heard Chirong curse others, but not Shilian himself? But Shilian could also understand a little why Chirong was dragging his feet to devour Guzi. If he was bragging to a normal person, or someone who's a bit older with more life experience, then the other might not believe him. Even if they agreed on the surface, it wouldn't feel sincere, or the reaction would be too greasily exaggerated, like those little minions under Chirong. But Guzi's praises were different. Every word came from the bottom of his heart. He truly believed his dad was the #1 most powerful guy in the world. It had probably been a long time since Chirong had been bragged so heartily, and he was greatly satisfied. He threatened, "You gotta be good, you hear me? If you don't listen to me, I'll put a ghost fire on you too." Sure enough, Guzi was scared and hastily covered his own head. "Oh no, I don't want to wear it. Oh yeah, Dad." He remembered what Hua Chong and Shilian had taught him and said nervously, "Once you wear this ghost fire, you won't be able to take it off, right?" If he had asked, "If you wear it, can you take it off?" Chirong might not tell the truth, but the question was, "You won't be able to take it off, right?" It was a question of doubt, and of course, it was taught by Hua Chong and Shilian. Chirong instantly kicked out and sent the head of one of the stone people flying. "Rubbish! If your daddy wants to lock, he'll lock. If he wants to unlock, he'll unlock. Look, Daddy will unlock to show you." He pointed to a farmer and yelled, "Dog fucker Shilian!" ghost fire on top of the farmer's head was extinguished, and he leapt to his feet. He didn't run very far before Xirong spat loudly. Another greasy ball of green ghost fire was spewed from his mouth, and it loomed over the top of the farmer's head. Xirong laughed boisterously and patted Goozy's head. What do you think? Your daddy's powerful, right? On top of the roof, Shilian wiped the sweat off his face. Huachong looked cool and aloof, but his voice was chilling. I think that trash wants to be even more garbage than he already is. His knuckles seemed to be cracking, and Shilian said hurriedly, oh, it's fine. He was more easily tricked than expected. They had originally taught Goozy many ways to dig for information, but it seemed none of them would need to be used. No wonder Xirong hadn't cursed Shilian earlier. It was because the cursing him had become the unlocking incantation. And here I thought he was being nice. Truly, his feelings for him ran deep. At this point, there was no need for the two to keep hiding. They instantly broke through the roof, jumping down. The loud rumble made Xirong fall off his chair in surprise. Who's there? Who's there? And when he saw who it was, Dog! Dog! He had probably wanted to curse at him, but remembering it was the very important unlocking incantation, Xirong quickly covered his mouth. In the corner, the farmer said, I think he called out the incantation earlier, so how about, let's see if we can unlock it together. Yin Yu, however, advisedly calmed, whether this person is here or not, I suggest you all better not say it, otherwise the consequences would be even worse than our present situation. On the other end, Xirong grabbed Goozy to shield in front of his person, changing his tune. You dog-fucked Shilian! You're shameless! You spy! Cunning! Shilian was a little woeful. Who the heck is dog-fucked? Xirong added, even if you know the incantation, it's useless. Are you going to curse yourselves? Would you not care if other people curse you? Hearing this, Huachong's expression grew darker. His knuckles cracked a couple more times, looking like he wouldn't hold back. Shilian, however, was unconcerned. Yeah, it's nothing. Then he repeated the incantation 5 to 6 times without hesitation, since once could only release one person. The captives all knew by now that he was going to be the one being cursed at in the incantation, and they couldn't help but raise their thumbs at him, in their hearts thinking, a real man! However, none of the green ghost fire locks on top of their heads were unlocked. Shilian's face changed slightly, and Xirong cackled. You fell for it! If it isn't me who unlocks it, it's pointless! You cursed for nothing! Ha 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 ha! A silver butterfly flew by Goozy's eyes. He blinked twice, his eyelids drooping. Then he fell asleep soon after. Xirong was still cackling by himself when suddenly a forceful yank of his sleeve made him spin 18 times before crashing into the wall. He blurted, Dogfucker, Shilian! After he cursed, that ball of ghost fire top of Yin Yu's head disappeared. Yin Yu leapt to his feet and blitzed a good distance away. Xirong instantly covered his mouth. Good, get him out of there. Shilian said pleasantly, Come, don't worry. Don't hold yourself back. Let yourself go. Keep cursing. As he spoke serenely, he rolled up his sleeves and grabbed a hold of him, and Xirong really couldn't tell what that stance meant. He yelled with all he had, Go ahead! Hit me! Even if you beat me to death, I won't curse that again! Next to him, Huachong said with an icy voice, Good. Xirong turned back to look. Huachong was smiling at him with a smile that couldn't be more fake, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the next second, his head was rammed 3 feet into the ground. Huachong plucked his head from the ground. Xirong roared, You dare treat me like this? I've had it. I'll burn everyone. We can all die together. Huachong, you fucker, burn up! It seemed that Huachong, you fucker, was the other matching incantation to start the incineration. Oh my God! However, after he yelled it, there were no cries or wails from anyone, and he opened his eyes in confusion. The group of farmers were all fine and were standing at the other end watching him. Xirong was shocked. What's going on? How come none of you died? Go die! Who released you? You did, Shilian said. Then he pointed at a silver butterfly next to him. That silver butterfly was broadcasting the same exact roar earlier. You cursed for nothing! Ha ha ha! It turns out the wraith butterfly had recorded everything and copied his voice, including the incantation. With one curse, it could unlock infinitely. Huachong said, Leave this plane yourself. Sorry, no one's coming with you. Then another violent punch, and Xirong was bashed into the underground. The farmers all went up and circled around to see. Oh, can he still be fished up? Yin Yu hopped down into the deep holes Huachong punched in, and a moment later jumped back up, a green Daruma doll in his hand. Chongzhu, Your Highness, it's been collected. Oh my God! being still Daruma doll. That greasily green Daruma doll was baring its teeth, rolling its eyes back, spitting a long tongue. Like it was laughing at someone, but also like it was putting on a spectacle to gain favor. In any case, it was an extremely poor taste. Even children would toss it aside in disgust if they saw it. Shilian couldn't tell if Qirong's own character decided on this design, or if Hua Chong had purposefully made him this way. Don't pass that thing to us. Take it far, far away, Hua Chong said. Yes, sir, Yin Yu acknowledged. To be honest, Shilian didn't really want to hold on to that thing either, and he picked up Guzi from the ground. A few wraith butterflies came flying from a different direction and landed on the back of Hua Chong's hand. He looked down to see and then said, "We need to hurry back to the Divine Temple." He whipped around. "Something's happened over there?" "Oh, come on! No, damn it! No! No! Ah! Oh my god! Oh my god! MXTX, you never let us down. I love MXTX. Man! So, every time Qirong just shows up, when you least expect it, but when you need it most, I freaking love his dumpster fire ridiculousness. And there are some, before starting this, I went back and looked at the chapters. We only got the next week is left for Volume 5. But yeah. I went back and there are some translation changes with the official copy from the web version, and I like this version's alterations, which I'll read to you all. But oh my god! What? I freaking love it. We only have one set of chapters left. Next week we're going to be looking at chapters 170 to 172, which are the last set of chapters for Volume 5. And it's a pretty good chunk. It's like 40 something pages. It's a big old chunk. So I'm like, we just left with Xuan Ji showing up. And we should probably flip this board over now that I'm thinking about it, because if Whiteboard Q can handle that lean. And just getting on here with our conspiracy board here. I feel like it's going to leave on a cliffhanger. Of course it is. Luckily, we have Volume 6, so we're just going to go right into it after next week, which is good. But, yeah, let's be real. Did we get anything answered? With this, did we get anything answered? Nope. We get mention of I don't know if it's mention of the first ascension or second ascension. Shilian talked about how he had been tasked with the goal of defeating the white face, and I can't decide if he's referring to back during Shanla, where Shilian had identified the white no face as being, I love that it's called the white no face by Wusheng. It's very creepy, a title. I don't know if he was talking about when they were facing Yongin and it was his job to like track down Bai Wusheng for the human face disease, or if he's talking about afterwards, during or before the second ascension, when he was like, I need to go find the white no face and track him down. He's the cause of all these problems. I don't know. So I'm thinking it's maybe during Shanla, but it's not outright said. The fetus spirit is nowhere to be found. Hua Chong's promotion, that stuff we're not dealing with. Mu Qing we're not dealing with. Ling Wen and Bai Jing still MIA. The Goshi of Shanla and the Mountain Spirits. I do love that MXTX, they left off in a cliffhanger last week and then making you think that Shilian can speak in the language, and then MXTX is like, well, now hold on. Instead, it's going to be something even more mysterious. So we're going to make it even more complicated. And you're just like, MXTX, why did I doubt you? So we're going to talk about that in a second. Long Ying, no clue. Windmaster and Hashan, no clue. The Rainmaster is mentioned, so I feel like we're getting closer to seeing them. They were mentioned. We found the farmers. We located them. It felt like we were playing an RPG, and you're like, look, there's the farmers in the house. I felt like I was playing a video game, and then we suddenly stumbled upon it. It was like, doo-doo-doo, and you suddenly stumbled upon the farmers, and they have little 8-bit ghost fires above their heads. And then Qirong's like, nah, nah, nah. I would love to play a 1992 style original Nintendo 8-bit version of Heaven Official's Blessing, where you play Xi Lian in his little 8-bit platforming form, and you just go through the game, and you just encounter all these people, and there's like little text boxes. Make this, someone! I want to play it! I would love it. You'd unlock the level, and there's Qirong and Xuan Ji and Goozy's out in the 8-bit mud puddle. I could just go on all day. I would absolutely love it. But yeah, the Rain Master's been mentioned. Xuan Ji having relations with this all. So Xuan Ji was a general during the time of Yuxi falling and was a general of Yuxi. Of course she was. So I'm going to just put up here in a different color because I've got special purposes with those. We're going to just put this little line right down here so we separate that. So Xuan Ji, being the Yuxi general that sold out Yuxi to Pei Ming. Imagine that. Imagine that. Now, we do learn that the Rain Master's name is Yuxi, which that makes sense because it's like Xi Lian, Shanla. They are the ruler of Yuxi, so of course their last name's tied to it. But their first name is Huang. Okay. Tied to Hua. That's interesting. Another tie to Hua. So that's fun times. But yeah, we've got their name. Fun times. And then we find out that they were the general that sold out all the information. So it's all coming together. And that should have been apparent back then, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together until now. So that was a cool reveal. I liked that. Xi Lian being the Wuyong prince. We still don't get any answers with that. I like that MXTX is suggesting that it's more complicated than that, right? Again, MXTX is not like, I'm not going to give you an easy answer. I'm going to make you work for it. And we're going to complicate things rather than make them simpler. So instead of giving us a simple yes or no answer with why does Xi Lian understand the Wuyong tongue, we just make things more complex. That seems like the name of the game. Bai Wusheng's death, don't get anything. Xi Lian recognizing Hua Chong, don't get anything. The ring, nothing. The princess tale, nothing. So this set of chapters, they answered none of our questions, but they did expand on the Rain Master one. So that's cool. We found the farmers. I feel like that feels like a task completed in itself. We found the farmers, we located them. Hooray, we can check that off. And I feel like finding the farmers means that we're closer to finding the Rain Master because, of course, if we're going to go further into Mount Tonglu, we have to cut a few cords. We have to sever a few ties here. So here's the question. There's a couple questions on here. I'm assuming that the Rain Master is going to show up for the farmers and to take care of this whole Xuan Ji situation. I'm assuming we're going to have the Rain Master show up, take care of Xuan Ji, get them out of here, or take them with them, whatever, because I doubt they're going to Mount Tonglu after this. Here's the thing, the Rain Master has no interest in going to Mount Tonglu. They are literally just here to get their farmers back. That's great. And half of them, half have been eaten by Qirong already. So there's that, who's now in a Daruma doll. Oh my god, we're just putting them all into Pokeballs and taking them with us to Mount Tonglu, right? Because I questioned at first when we saw that Yin Yu was captured. I was like, where's Qi Ying? I had forgotten that Hua Chong put him in a Daruma doll to carry with him. So Qi Ying's in a Daruma doll. Now Qirong is in a Daruma doll. How many Daruma dolls can we make? But I feel like that's just setting up for the ultimate chaos. Because here's my thing. The Rain Master's going to show up soon. I feel maybe by the end of this volume. Who knows? They're going to show up soon. They're going to face Xuan Ji. They have history with Xuan Ji, so that's going to be a thing. I feel kind of like the Ling Wen thing. I think we're going to get some backstory here. Pei Ming is here too, so there's going to be a confrontation. It's going to be awkward city because there's going to be a confrontation between the Rain Master, Xuan Ji, and Pei Ming, I feel. All at the same time, Pei Ming's going to be like, what did I do to deserve this? What did I do? And so I feel like there's going to be a confrontation, but I feel like by the end of it, either Xuan Ji is going to be taken into custody by the Rain Master. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened because Xuan Ji doesn't need to go to Mount Tonglu. I feel like Xuan Ji is probably going to either be taken by the Rainmaster back to the Heavenly Quarter, back with them to Yushi, or Xuan Ji is going to run away and escape. I'm going to call it one of those two things. And then I feel like the Rainmaster is going to take the farmers and be like, I don't want to go to Mount Tonglu, so y'all have fun with that. Bye. And I just came to get my farmers and go. The question is going to be, what happens with Qirong and Guzi? I would not be surprised if the Rainmaster takes Guzi with them and maybe Pei Su and Banyu. If we see the Rainmaster again. I feel like before we get to the kiln, a lot of things need to go down. We need to take care of the farmers. I feel like Rainmaster is going to take them away. I would not be surprised if the Rainmaster takes Guzi, because Guzi is a little kid. Guzi does not need to go to the kiln. They're not a ghost. They're a mortal little kid, and they're probably sickly at this point. And as we've established in this set of chapters, they need to get away from Qirong for a bit. They need to get away, because Qirong's a little bit of a bad influence. Just a wee bit. So I feel like the Rainmaster could take Guzi away. And then I wonder if they're going to take Pei Su and Banyu back with them, because we've established in the last set of chapters, Pei Su is running on empty. Pei Su does not need to go to the kiln either. Basically, no mortals need to go to the kiln, so Pei Su and Guzi need to leave. Banyu, I feel like she's a little ghost, but she's not going to leave Pei Su's side. I feel like since the Rainmaster's taken Banyu in already, that the Rainmaster is going to be fine with taking Banyu with him. I feel like that'll be fine. I feel like we're going to be okay with that. So yeah, so we've got that to go off of. But then also, what is going to happen with Qirong? That's a big question. Is Qirong going to go to Mount Tonglu or go with the Rainmaster? One of those two things. It would be hilarious if the because here's the thing. I think that one of two things are going to happen. Either the Rainmaster is going to take Qirong along with all these others with him away, because we don't need them at Mount Tonglu. We don't need them for the final act. As we're getting, it's weird to think. Do we think that Mount Tonglu is the final act? I guess we should talk about that before diving into these chapters. Do we think that Mount Tonglu is the final act? Do we? I don't know. We have 3 volumes left, and we're getting close to Mount Tonglu, and it seems like Mount Tonglu is going to be something that is, you would think Mount Tonglu would be the climax, right? Because we've been building up this whole time, building up the main conflict of the story. We have to prevent a Supreme Ghost from being created. So you would think Mount Tonglu would be the final act, but we have 3 volumes left. So that makes me think, no, Mount Tonglu seems like it's going to be the final act, but it's not. Kind of like in Modao Zushi, where you think that the mountain where all of the people are being led to and held hostage is going to be the final act, but then it's not. It's like the second to final act, and then we have the temple that's the final act. So I guess maybe it's one of those situations where we're going to go to Mount Tonglu, stuff's going to happen, and then we'll have the conclusion, right? Maybe the end of, like, halfway through Volume 7 and Volume 8 are going to be the finale and the climax, I guess. So, but yeah, do we take Qirong to Mount Tonglu, or does he go with the Rainmaster? It could go one of two ways for me. I think that the Rainmaster could take Qirong because of Guzi. If the Rainmaster takes Guzi away, Guzi's going to freak out without his dad. And so I could see the Rainmaster taking the little Daruma doll of Qirong. And maybe the Rainmaster can find a way to separate Qirong from the dad's body. Maybe the Rainmaster's that strong. I don't know. Maybe Junwoo can do it. I don't know. But I also think that you could have to where Shilian and Huachong keep Qirong with them in the Daruma doll, because I think if he goes too far away, he'll pop out of the Daruma doll because he's too far from Huachong. Or because, as they determined from this set of chapters, Guzi doesn't need to be influenced by Qirong anymore. So the Rainmaster could be like, oh, your dad's getting healed by Shilian and Huachong. He'll come back later. And be one of those situations. I think it'd be funny to keep Qirong as the Daruma doll alongside Qiying with Huachong, because what it does is set up for this very chaotic moment. Like, I could just see them all on Mount Tonglu. Things are happening, and then all of a sudden, Qirong pops out of the Daruma doll, Qiying pops out of the Daruma doll, whoever else Huachong's turned into Daruma doll pops out, and it's just a big old thing, is what I think could happen. But I don't know. Again, there's so many possibilities at this point, and what I love about MXTX is that, as we've seen in this chapter, what you think is going to happen you ain't got a clue, because I didn't even see Hua Chong or Xuan Ji or Guzi showing up at this point. Did not see it coming. It was like just a massive surprise. So I was like, yes, please, thank you for this surprise. Thank you, sir. I'll take some more. So let's get into this, right? Let's get into this. We're gonna just put this over here, mark this off, or anything else. But I am excited because I feel like with the farmers showing up, we are close to the Rainmaster showing up. And the Rainmaster, I feel, is going to be our Deus Ex Machina to get everybody that doesn't need to go to Mount Tonglu away from Mount Tonglu. So I think that going into Mount Tonglu, if we're thinking about it, I think going into Mount Tonglu is going to be obviously Hua Chong and Shi Lian. I think Pei Ming is going to go. I think Pei Ming is going to show up and be like, I ain't going to miss out on this. I think that Ling Wen is, because Pei Ming needs a buffer. If Pei Ming goes to Mount Tonglu, he's going to need a buffer. So I think Ling Wen and the Brocade Immortal are going to show up to be that buffer when they get to Mount Tonglu. I think that's going to be it. But aside from those four, I don't think anybody else. Well, and we have Yin Yu and Qi Ying. Unless Hua Chong sends them away. Unless Hua Chong is like, you guys need to go. Yin Yu, you're not safe here. Take the little Daruma doll of Qi Ying and go. I don't know. So maybe it'll be the four of them. Maybe it'll just be Hua Chong and Shi Lian. I don't know. Maybe that'll be the case when we finally get to Mount Tonglu. Maybe Hua Chong will send Yin Yu away with Qi Rong and Qi Ying. Be like, get out of here. Maybe Pei Ming will apprehend Ling Wen and the Brocade Immortal and be like, we're taking them back to the Heavenly Realm. We're going to go get reinforcements. We'll be back. And it will just leave Shi Lian and Hua Chong on Mount Tonglu, which is good in a way because that will let others get out and get more help and bring them back, but bad in a way because that seems to be what the Goshi and the Mountain Spirits want. So, and then in the midst of all this, we still don't know where Fu Yao is. So it's just all setting up just absolute mystery and chaos, and I don't know what MXTX is gonna do. She can do anything, and that's kind of the insane thing, is there's so many characters in the story. She could literally do anything she wants to, and we're just over here like, okay, yay. So, okay, we need to get into this. I feel like I've talked for like 15 minutes before we've even started the chapters. So, okay, we established that it's not that Shi Lian is hearing things in the Wulong Yang language, because Hua Chong repeats things back and Shi Lian doesn't understand them. No. Instead, we get this really freaky weirdness, right? So instead, what has happened is that someone has implanted these emotions and memories into Shi Lian from Wu Yang. Now, okay. Now, the weird thing is, was it intentional? Was it intentional or accidental? And I think that it will depend on who did it, whether it's intentional or accidental. I think it will depend on who did it. So there are two conditions that Hua Chong lines out for who could possibly implant memories into somebody. I didn't even know this was a thing. Thanks, MXTX. Who knew this was a thing? They're like, who could have implanted these memories? Well, it had to be us. There are two conditions. And what I like is that, again, Hua Chong knows something. Hua Chong knows something about this entire incident, and they're not telling Shi Lian. And this is such a weird moment because Hua Chong, as far as we know, has been 100% honest with Shi Lian, the most sincere, as I said, with Shi Lian this entire story. But with this one thing with Wu Yang, they're not talking about it. And what I think it is to me, again, Shi Lian seems like the obvious choice to be the former Prince of Wu Yang that's been reincarnated. He seems like the obvious choice. I'm leaning more towards it being Hua Chong, because I feel like the only reason Hua Chong is holding back and not telling Shi Lian all that he knows is because the information is about him, is about Hua Chong. And Hua Chong is afraid when he tells Shi Lian what's up, he thinks Shi Lian's going to judge him, and Shi Lian's going to think less of him. And that's why he doesn't want to say it, because he doesn't want it to come out and Shi Lian not be on board with him anymore. I feel like that's it. I feel like that Hua Chong doesn't want to admit that he might have done something in the past or kept something from Shilian to protect him, and he's going to be judged for it. That's the only reason I can think. I'm like, why would Hua Chong hold things back from Shilian when he's been so sincere and honest this entire time? Because the information he's holding back is about himself, and he doesn't want himself to look bad in front of Shilian. Maybe because he is adamant. He's like, he grips his shoulder and says harsh. He's like, don't keep thinking this way. You don't know. He's like, you're letting assumptions guide your decisions. Don't think this way, which is code for you're not the prince, but I know who is, but I can't tell you because then you'll get mad and judge me. That's what it's reading to me as. He knows the answer to the question, but he doesn't want to tell Shilian, but he doesn't want Shilian to know or think a certain way. It's very, very complicated, right? And he's like, fine, well then in order to transplant memories and emotions to another person, are there any requirements? And he's like, yes, there's 2. So you have, now he doesn't say, he says, there are 2 requirements, which means, now the question is, the conclusion they reach is that it's a person that maybe only meets one of the requirements. So I'm guessing that's a possibility. They don't have to meet both. But first, they have to be someone you absolutely trust. You absolutely trust them. And it says willing to be led by them, but I think that's the idea that you trust them enough to think that they are a leader, right? And the other thing that is there, you are powerless to retaliate. Powerless to resist, or basically you fear them. Okay. You're powerless to resist or you fear them. Those are the conditions, and you trust them. You trust them, and you're also powerless to resist or fear them. So Shilian comes to the conclusion that there are actually 4, but 3 people he instantly thinks of. And the first is the one that he thought of at the beginning, which is the Goshi of Shanla. And I like that he establishes, he's like, I love my parents, but we'll get that later on with Shirong and Guzi and his father, and the idea of trust and, your parents not being what you thought they were. And he's like, I love my parents, but they're not ones that I, immediately was going to be led by. He's like, but the Goshi is someone he kind of idolized and respected. And he's like, the Goshi I learned from, I trusted him. He wasn't family, so there was that extra layer there, but he was also powerless to resist him. It's not necessarily that he feared the Goshi, but he felt like he had to do what he said or he'd get in trouble. So it's kind of like when you fear a teacher or a mentor, that it's not fear out of like that you're going to die, but it's fear of disappoint. You don't want to disappoint them, right? And I feel like the first 2 are that, right? Because he says the Goshi, and Hua Chong's like, well, I figured that. Then he says Junwoo. And Junwoo, he talks about like his respect and awe at Junwoo. And that makes sense too. Shilian's always been like that. He's like, I have immense respect for Junwoo, and I'm in awe of his power and ability, right? He absolutely trusts him. And just similar to the Goshi, he feels powerless to resist. It's that fear of disappointment. It's a fear of disappointing them. He's not afraid that Junwoo or the Goshi of Shanla is going to kill him, but that he's going to be a disappointment to them. So there's that fear attached. And I love that Hua Chong is like, okay. Unimpressed. What do they say there? He's unimpressed. He's just like, whatever. He's just like, whatever. What does he say there? He didn't look too impressed, but he didn't comment. He's like, okay. I feel like there's a little bit of jealousy there that Hua Chong does not like that Shilian holds Junwoo on such a high pedestal. But I'm like, Hua Chong, we know that Shilian is not attracted to Junwoo like that. Not like he is to you. Absolutely not. No. And then he says the last one, he says that these 2 meet the first 2 requirements. Pretty much. But then the next one only meets the second requirement. He doesn't trust this character at all, but he's terrified of him. And that is Bai Wusheng, the white no face. I love it. And it's just fear. I love that. I love the idea that Shilian's like, I'm terrified of him. Like he says creature. Of any creature, I am terrified of Bai Wusheng, which says something because as far as we know, and Shilian says, oh, it's nothing to be afraid of now. Everything's much better now. He's gone. supposedly. It says something that even the mention of him now still makes Shilian worried. Like, that's how deep the fear of this character went, that he was so terrified of him. And yeah, and in this case, it is fear of death. Like, he fears that the White No-Face will tear everything away from him, which is so fascinating to me, right? Which makes me wonder, I want to know more about Bai Wuxiang, and I was getting really excited in this, and I'm like, MXTX, you were just poking the bear. You were just teasing as much as you can. So then there's a fourth person, though. And Hua Chong's like, oh, there's nobody else? And he's like, yes. And it's Hua Chong. I mean, he trusts the most. And what I love about the way that Shilian is trying to explain it to Hua Chong, he's like, well, there's this other one. He doesn't want to say Hua Chong because it's like the trust he has in Hua Chong is not one of respect or admiration. It's like a deep, intimate trust. Like, we've been friends. He says we've not been friends for years, as far as Shilian believes, but he's like, we have a deep friendship. And yeah, he's like, that friendship and bond we have, it's this trust. He's like, I trust you more than anybody. If I have a problem, I'm going to come to you first. And Shilian's been like that the entire story. If something's happened, he always relies on Hua Chong showing up to save him or to help him, right? And I feel like he does. I feel like, you know, it's the one cool thing is that on the one hand, you have these two where he meets both requirements. And then you have Bai Wuxiang is just fear and Hua Chong is just trust. But I feel like Shilian does fear Hua Chong a little bit in that he doesn't want to disappoint him. A little bit, right? But I do like the idea that it could be just the counter of the two. So of these four, because he asked if it's Feng Shen or Mu Qing to test the waters, and Shilian's like, oh God, no, not them. That's not it. No. So of the four, who would implant emotions and memories in Shilian? I'm gonna rule out Junwoo. I'm just gonna go ahead and rule out Junwoo, because why would Junwoo implant memories of people dying into Shilian and talking about Shilian failing to save them? Why would Junwoo want to do that? Junwoo seems like he doesn't want to cause Shilian any harm. So why? And then Bai Wuxiang, oh, absolutely. If that tussle with Bai Wuxiang and Shilian back in Volume 2, when they were like wrestling in the forest, if Bai Wuxiang took that opportunity to go like yoink and ninja those memories into Shilian, absolutely. Now, if that's the case, does that make it even more likely that Bai Wuxiang is tied to Wu Yang? Is tied to all of this and could be the Prince of Wu Yang? Maybe. That seems like it could tie it together. Sure. If it's the Goshi, my question is, if it is the Goshi, why would the Goshi do that? I mean, Bai Wuxiang, it makes sense. Bai Wuxiang wants to like hurt Shilian and cause harm to him. So yeah, of course. But why would the Goshi implant those memories? Why? It seems like the Goshi, because they're all about memories of saving him, the Goshi back during Volume 2 didn't want Shilian to know about the people of Yong'an asking for a salvation. He didn't want Shilian to know about that because he knew Shilian would get involved. He didn't want Shilian to overstep his means. He didn't want that to happen. So why would he implant memories of people of Wuyang doing the same thing he was actively trying to get Shilian to ignore during the current timeline? That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I don't think it could be the Goshi of Goshi of Shanla. I don't think that's it. No. The most likely option is Bai Wuxiang. But then there's the question of Hua Chong. And Hua Chong makes the comment of you shouldn't trust people so easily. So why? And I think Hua Chong feels a little guilty at this point because Shilian's basically revealed that he trusts Hua Chong more than anybody else that he knows. And Hua Chong is probably hiding something from Shilian at this moment and is like, oh, that's making me feel guilty because I'm hiding something from you, Shilian. You shouldn't trust me like you say you do. It's not good. But why would Hua Chong implant memories? Unless it was accidental, unless he didn't mean to do it and it was just something that happened and he was like, crap, and now he's like, oh God, these are activating and I'm sorry. You know, I feel like with Bai Wuxiang, it would be intentional. With Hua Chong, it would be accidental. And we've seen throughout this volume and throughout this entire series that lots of times things between between characters that have intimate connections and like each other, bad shit happens on accident, and these characters suffer because of it. And so I'm like, okay, I feel like that could be the case, but I don't know. I do like the idea that MXTX is saying, look, we're not saying Shilian's the Prince of Wuyong. We're not saying it outright. We're making this more complicated. And now we've narrowed it down to 4 possible people connected. I don't think it's Jinwoo. I don't. I think it's Goshi and Bai Wusheng or Hua Chong. One of the 3 has put these memories into Shilian. I think Bai Wusheng's the obvious choice. But again, as we've noted, the obvious choice isn't always the correct one. So, or maybe it is. Who knows? But I think it's fascinating that we're trying to figure out all these mysteries all in one, right? And Hua Chong's reaction is interesting, where he's just trying to figure out how to respond to all of this. And I do think it's because he feels guilty. I think Hua Chong feels like he's keeping something from Shilian and he doesn't want to say it. But I feel like the only reason he's keeping it from Shilian is because it's about himself. And he is so afraid that Shilian will be disappointed or mad at him when he finds out. And we all know as the audience, is Shilian likely to get mad at him? Unless it's something big, but I'm like, what could it be? I don't know. But yeah, so we go back to the silver butterflies. I love that the butterflies, I love the mechanics of them latching on to his wristlets. Those are cool. I love that. I'm sure that's been talked about before in this series, but it's never hit me. The visuals of the butterflies come straight from the wristlets, and that's where they all are stored there. I like that. But I just love that Shilian grabs the tiniest butterfly like he did in the past in one of the earlier volumes. And it's like, good job. Thanks for your hard work. Like when the butterflies were attacking Mu Qing and Feng Shen, he grabbed like a tiny one that was wavering, being like, oh, poor little guy. And now he's like holding his hands, being like, oh, thank you for your hard work. And then all the butterflies who are connected with Hua Chuang, like Yiming is, are like, oh my God, Shilian, ah. And in the book, they say a delicious pastry. He says that they smelled a delicious pastry and charged towards them like mad. In the book translation, they say that a delicious pastry is a nice little idiom for something desirable. And Hua Chong is like, get away, stop it. Don't let him know. Don't let him know that I like him. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Shilian and Hua Chong get so close at this point in this entire volume to telling each other they love each other. I'm like, get it over with. Just do it, please. But it's not. I'm starting to get like Pei Ming. I'm like, just do it already. But then something's coming. And I'll be honest, when I heard the dong dong dong, I thought it was Bai Wusheng, or I thought it was the Goshi. I was getting so excited. I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, huh. But Xuan Ji and Guzi are great. In the book, though, the dong 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 is a weird translation because I was thinking of a musical instrument. I was thinking of like a cymbal or a drum being beaten, but no, in the book it's thump thump thump, and that's the sound of Xuan Ji's legs because she snapped her legs. I'm like, I feel bad for Xuan Ji because not because of Xuan Ji's actions. I feel bad for Xuan Ji because I'm like, you're a ghost. Why can't you change your physical appearance to not have your legs be like that? Like that, if I was a ghost, that'd be the first thing I'd do. Would be like, we're fixing these so I can walk properly. But maybe she doesn't have the choice. Maybe she doesn't have the ability to. I'm like, all these other ghosts can change their appearances, but you can't. That sucks. I feel bad for you. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm just like, I for a second I thought it was going to be Jean Lan and the fetus spirit too, but nope. Especially when we saw the wedding dress. I was like, oh, is Jean Lan, like, what's happening? Also the wedding dress. For a second, I was getting Beetlejuice vibes and being like, is Xuan Ji getting married to Qirong? What? for a hot second, this feels like the most demented and dysfunctional and bizarre nuclear family that I'd ever heard of Xuan Ji, Qirong, and Guzi. For a second, I was like, what the fudge is happening? I was just picturing like Qirong with like the Beetlejuice pinstripes and the green ghost flame. And then Xuan Ji looks like Lydia from the live action movie, just getting ready to marry them in like the red dress. I was so ready for that. I was like, what is about to happen? What is this? But no, that is not what happens. Not at all. At least I don't think. I was like, Qirong, again, does not seem, he's just using Xuan Ji because he knows that she's a powerful ghost, and he's like teasing her with the idea that when he finds, I do love the idea though that he was like, I'll chop off Pei Ming's penis and let you have your way with him as a sex slave. It felt very like, I don't know, like Jabba the Hutt-esque. Like, I don't know. It feels like kind of like Jafar and Iago. It felt like Jafar and Iago. We go back to Aladdin. It felt like Chi-Rong was Jafar and Xuan Ji was Iago, and then Pei Ming was like the Sultan, and Xuan Ji was like, you eat a cracker. Only now she'd be like, now you play with your own penis or something like that. How weird. How weird and warped, right? But there's a weird part of me that kind of shipped Chi-Rong and Xuan Ji together a little bit. I know I've shipped Xuan Ji and Kamo together from back in volume 1, but there's a part of me that's like, do they kind of deserve each other? I don't know. But then again, Chi-Rong is so awful that I think anybody would be unhappy with Chi-Rong, so probably not. It's so weird. And so we find the farmers. He's kidnapped the farmers. He has the ghost fires. I love the idea that there's 2 types of ghost fires. There's the ghost fire that Xuan Ji has above her head that like ties her to him in weird ways. But then there's also these ghost fires that have like legs and arms and all 5 senses and are like ways of like locking someone in place. And poor Yin Yu ends up in there, and they don't know that Yin Yu is tied with the others. They think he's just tied with the Rainmaster, which good on Yin Yu for being resourceful and being like, nope, I'm instantly in a part of this, so don't worry about me. And they're just trying to figure out what exactly to do. And then, Chi-Rong and Guzi. Okay. So we have Chi-Rong and Guzi, right? We have Chi-Rong and Guzi, and then Xuan Ji. Which, what I love is that Xuan Ji, it's good to know that back when Pei Ming and all of them were having their floozy little tryst, that kids were not on the table. She wanted to get married to Pei Ming, wanted to lock that dick in for life. I don't blame her. I don't blame her a bit. But I love that she also was like, I don't want kids. I feel like that could have been something she could have argued with Pei Ming, being like, Pei Ming, but you and I could be together and be generals of Yushi and your kingdom together and Zhuli forever. And like, we don't have to have kids. We could just have sex all the time. And I'm sure at one point Pei Ming was like, well. But then he changed his mind being like, I don't like being locked down. I don't like commitment. I feel like at one point Pei Ming might have been like, okay, no kids. We're good. All right. And then was like, oh no, I'm not here for the commitment. But it's so funny because I appreciate that MXTX gives us a female character that is not maternal, because I'm not maternal. Like I do love kids. I do. Do I want a kid? Not really. Maybe I would adopt a kid one day, maybe when I'm older. But right now I'm just like, no, I just don't really want a kid. And I feel like, a lot of women get pressured all the time. Be like, when are you having a kid? When are you adopting a kid? When are you going to raise a child? I'm like, not everybody wants to. And that's fine. I feel like, Chi-Rong's a little bit sexist here. Like, where's your maternal instinct? Aren't you a female ghost? What about you taking care of kids? And Xuan Ji's like, this isn't even my own kid, first of all, and I don't want a kid, so no. So, props to MXTX for like breaking down the patriarchy just a little bit and proving Chi-Rong is a dumpster fire, heap as well. But the thing about it is, Chi-Rong has not, and we've speculated this since, way back when we saw that Guzi was still with Chi-Rong, like back in volume 4, I think, Chi-Rong kind of likes the idea of being a dad. He likes the idea of having a kid, right? For a lot of reasons, right? He kind of has this weird pseudo-paternal thing. And is that because he's inhabiting the body of a father and it's the father's like paternal instincts coming out and melding with Chi-Rong? Maybe. But also it's the idea that Chi-Rong didn't have a dad. He didn't have a dad. Or if he did, his dad was a deadbeat. So Chi-Rong has no clue how to act as a father at all. So he's kind of just winging it. And Chi-Rong's kind of demented anyway. So it's just like, it's like the blind leading the blind. He doesn't know how to act like a father because he didn't have one. And he's also really messed up from being a ghost and eating people and not knowing what to do and his own personality tendencies. So he's just the worst dad. But Like, that's just like the weirdest, funniest thing in the world. But he does a lot of things that dads do with their sons. He brags to him and wants to seem like this heroic, powerful character. And Shilian goes into this big rant about, bragging and how men usually brag to women and to their sons. And they want to brag to women to attract them to them, right? But they also brag to their sons to make their sons feel like their dads are good. The bragging is just to make yourself feel better, right? About yourself. Either in front of a woman or in front of your son. And Shilian makes this very interesting comparison to his own dad. He's like, I remember my dad, as noble and great as he was, he bragged to me when I was a kid. And I had all these ideas about him. And then when I became, a heavenly official far too soon, I learned very quickly that my dad wasn't who I thought he was. And he wasn't the heroic man that I quite had the understanding of by how he bragged to me. And it was a disappointment. And so, there is this idea that Shilian figures out that, I guess Qirong's doing the same thing for Guzi. He's bragging about himself to make... And it's not just the fact that he wants Guzi to like him and has this kind of paternal thing too, but Shilian also establishes that, okay, if Qirong's not being a dad or a father figure, he's either trying to do that, or if that's not the case, he's just doing it with Guzi because he's the only one who truly will listen, right? He's the only one that would truly listen. Like, Shilian establishes in the story that everybody else just kind of looks and goes, oh, well, yes. It's not like a minion that's like, oh, yes, sir, you are the smartest, sir, because they're in fear of their life. Qirong knows that Guzi's answers are going to be genuine and heartfelt. And so that's why he brags to them and keeps them around, because he's like, you're the only one that will listen and give me a heartfelt response. Which is really sad, right? So it's kind of tragic either way. Either Qirong only is keeping Guzi around because he's the only one that will listen and give him a genuine response, or he's trying to be like this weird pseudo-father to him and is just failing miserably. It's pitiful either way. And Shilian, God, the moment that he talks to Guzi, and Guzi's like, well, my dad says that one day I'll be able to eat people too. And Shilian's like, oh, God, no, we have to stop this now. Like, Qirong thinks it's okay to eat people because he's this wraith ghost, but he can't be teaching people to do it. It'll be horrible. And Huachong brings up a good point. He's like, Guzi's been around Qirong a long time now. He's this impressionable little kid. Do we not think he's been affected by this mentally? Like, he may be mentally scarred for life now because of how much he's been around Qirong and seen his bad habits. And Shilian's like, oh my God, yes, we're going to have an intervention. So that part about it made me think that there is a good chance that Guzi will be separated from Qirong to keep him from spiraling any further. Because right now, Guzi seems like he's in decent control of his constitution and what is right and what is wrong. But Huachong brings up a good point that if things keep going the way they are, Guzi's sense of right and wrong is likely to be very affected in a bad way. And Shilian's like, oh no, we can't have that. Let's not do that. So yeah. So fascinating. And so then, yeah. So we have Yushi Huang. Yushi Huang has chased us here. And so I like the idea that Qirong wouldn't suspect Yinyu being Huachong's subordinate, because Yinyu has such little presence. It's like, why would you be used by the Crimson Rain Flower? I love that everybody has this perception of Huachong that is not quite correct. And so that assumption just leads Yinyu to be safe, right? I so had forgotten how much Qirong cursed. I forgot how much he cursed in this. I was like, oh my God. He's like, you're so narrow-minded and miserly. Oh, man. And then he would always, I like how Shilian says he would always cause other harm first and act self-important later. Like, Qirong is just, he's the worst, but damn is he not entertaining. That's my conflict. I was talking in the Discord. I'm like, he is a dumpster fire. He is garbage. He is a trash king. He is one of the worst. He's the worst, as you would say in Parks and Rec, but he's just so damn entertaining that I just can't help but smile whenever I see him in the story, because I'm like, you just know it's going to be the funniest damn thing because of whatever happens around him. It's going to be ridiculous, and I love it so much. And so Shilian is like, so what do we do with this? how do we save the farmers? If we try anything, he's going to do this incantation and light everyone on fire. What do we do? Which is genuinely a threat. And Hua Chong's like, don't worry. We're gonna, if there's a way to lock people in, there's a way to unlock them. We just gotta figure out the phrase. What's so surprising about this is the fact that Qirong literally thinks he's gonna go to Mount Tonglu and become a supreme. I was baffled by this, and I think Shilian was equally baffled, because I'm like, Hua Chong, I mean, I get why Qirong would want to become a supreme, because right now he's kind of the laughing stock of the four calamities. He's the only one that's not a supreme. He's the only one out of the loop. If some other ghost becomes a supreme, well, I mean, at this point, we've established by Hua Chong that we like stories with four. Four's company, five's a crowd. If some other ghost becomes a supreme, then we'll do those four supreme and Qirong will be forgotten. They'll just be like, oh, he's not a supreme. He was just there temporarily, but he's the fake. So I could see why Qirong would not want to be the imposter. He'd want to become the supreme ghost to live up to Hua Chong and Blackwater. But I'm like, I'm a little baffled, because it seems like you have to fight a lot of ghosts inside the kiln. Maybe not, if we're doing like what we're doing with the mountain spirits. Maybe not. But there's no way in hell that Qirong could face Shilian or Hua Chong. But he doesn't think he's going to have to. He thinks he can face whatever other ghosts he discovers inside the kiln. And I'm like, okay. So Qirong does not need to become a supreme. No, that would be awful. That would be he would be the one Junwoo would worry about, because Qirong would just be so vain and just chaotic and ridiculous that Hua Chong would be like, at least Hua Chong and Heshan just do their own thing, and they don't actively go to the heavenly realms causing problems. I mean, honestly, Qirong has only caused problems that we know of. I mean, there was a thing with the 33 gods where he challenged them, but I think that was just to make a name for himself, to be like, don't bother me. I think that was the whole reason behind it. But like Heshan, yeah, Heshan has caused boats to sink, but that's been boats that have come into his territory. He doesn't really seem to care otherwise. He just wants to be left alone. And then you have Hua Chong, who the only ones we've seen him really challenge and hurt have been ghosts, have been Kamo, have been Xuan Ji, have been Qirong. We've not really seen him harm actually any heavenly officials. So, and the only one that we did was the Earthmaster, who turned out to be Heshan. So Hua Chong has really not harmed any heavenly officials that we know of in this story so far. He's only harmed ghosts. He just has a reputation that he could, based on defeating the gods that were in the heavenly realm. But they challenged him, so it was mutual. It was a mutual challenge. He didn't just show up and wreck shit. He showed up, challenged, they accepted. I mean, Feng Xin and Mu Qing said no, so it was on the table to say no. So yeah, so that's fascinating. But yeah, Hua Chong and Heshan, they kind of just do their own thing. Bai Wusheng was the problem, but we don't know for sure if Bai Wusheng came from Mount Tonglu or not. That's not been confirmed in the story. Only the other two. So yeah, Qirong would be a problem if he was a supreme ghost. That would be an issue. We probably don't want that. And so yeah, Xuan Ji points out, why haven't you ate Guzi yet? And he's like, oh, I'm going to wait to fatten him up. And I'm like, he's not fattening up. He's getting sickly. He's getting worse. You could have ate him already, but no. Okay. I do love the idea that Guzi calls Shilian, he calls scrap collecting Gege, and Shilian's like, oh God, that's what I'm known as. It's so funny. He's like, I've got some pride, which is something. Shilian from before would be totally fine with it, but Shilian's getting some pride back in him from being around Hua Chong and going on these adventures. So now he's like, oh, don't call me that. Call me Dao Zhang, He's getting a little bit of himself out yet. And again, Qirong, if he didn't care about Guzi, would let him run off and would let him go. He doesn't need Guzi for food. He has the farmers. That's just an excuse. But when he tells Guzi not to run off, he does care in his weird, demented, twisted and warped pseudo way. He does kind of care about Guzi. It's just completely misplaced and wrong. So then we have the last chapter, chapter 169, where they give Guzi the directions on how to go and get the actual, the unlocking mechanism. And at this point, Yin Yu is very suspicious to Xuan Ji. She's trying to figure out what his deal is. She doesn't think, and she asks him what he does, and he's like, oh, well, I was giving lost hungry ghosts some food. When they come knocking, I give them a bundle of rice and send them on their way. That's why I'm covered in the essence of evil. I feel like it's interesting that Yin Yu talks about being a caregiver. It reminded me of him and Chi Ying, where he would give Chi Ying the birthday present every year. Kind of reminded me of that. My favorite, though, is that Chi Rong's like, well, I'm a hungry ghost. How about you give me some relief? I'm like, oh my God, he just feels like the sleaziest redneck, like out in a trailer somewhere. That's it, boy, get in there all nice and deep like, you know, from Dodgeball, just the worst. And Xuan Ji is like, well, there's so many hungry ghosts. How could you bring relief to all? It's just for show. That part's interesting because Xuan Ji is suggesting kind of what people were suggesting to Shi Lian back in volume 2. She's like, you can't save everybody, so what you're doing is just for show. It's not genuine. Which is so fascinating because for Shi Lian, him trying to save everybody was genuine. But she's just showing how she's talking about how naive that line of thinking is. Which I was waiting for MXTX to go a little bit further into that or to give us a reaction from Shi Lian, but we don't have time for that. So we've got to move on. And then we get the idea of, which is genius. I love that, again, we're mixing real world applications into this fantasy story. The idea of using the butterflies as a recorder is great, and like a little mix and match recorder that you can like edit and cut and do all this fun stuff with. Hua Chong just already has Photoshop uploaded in his server. We're all good. The butterflies have Photoshop. We're great. We're fine. But what I love about it is they're taking lines of what's happening right now. So meanwhile, while all this business is going down, Pei Ming is over with Banyu, bonding with her and Pei Su, trying to make Pei Su some food. That is freaking adorable. So Pei Ming, I love it. Pei Ming is basically not trying to, but bonding with Banyu in trying to feed Pei Su. It's like when, you know, the in-laws like, I don't like you, girl, and then they're stuck together and he's like, well, if you just did this right, you know, I get you're trying to help my descendant, but come on. And like he's slowly coming around to Banyu, maybe, right? Because it says, the line was, if that's the case, roast these rats first. Do you have any more snakes? Give some here. He's teaching her how to cook. Pei Ming is teaching Banyu how to cook. That's so cute. We've come so far, right? And he's just like, don't eat these rats. And Shi Lian's like, oh God, those rats have been eating corpses. Pei Su should probably not eat those. That's disgusting. Give him all the snakes. Do not give him any of those corpse-eating rats. That's gross. No. And so they mix and match the audio, and Xuan Ji's like, did you hear that? And Chi Rong is very correct in saying she's delusional. Chi Rong is a dumpster fire, but he's not dumb. He's like, come on. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, whatever. Like, don't be stupid, right? And so Yin Yu and the other prisoners kind of catch on, and they're like, we're not going to let, you know, this get found out. We're going to let her be delusional because that might get us saved. And then she's like, what if it's telepathy? And he's like, telepathy? He's like, no. So Chi Rong saw through it the whole time. It's just she was so delusional about him that she did not. And then we see the other line of thinking with Pei Ming and Banyu, where he's like, oh, you little dummy, come here and I'll teach you. Which I'm like, don't call her a dummy, Pei Ming. But in the book, I'll go back to this part here. I love this. In the book, let me see here. He's like, if you want to unlock it, I can. And so he says down here, we see the line. What is it here? He's like, if this doesn't work. And so we have all them. Okay. What is it here? He says, you silly little thing. That's instead of you little dummy. You silly little thing. Come here. I'll teach you. A moment later, a young girl's voice could be heard. Oh, please do not pay. I've done it once. I'm experienced now. Let me do it. So, of course, what it is that Pei Ming is trying to teach her how to cook things. And Banyu's like, I already know how to do it, but thank you. But I know I'm already experienced. But that's not how Xuan Ji takes it. Because in any other reality, why would Pei Ming be teaching somebody how to cook? No. He only knows how to toss salads. That's all. Pei Ming only knows how to toss salads. He don't know how to do anything else. So the idea of him trying to teach Banyu how to cook is hilarious. But, so Xuan Ji naturally takes it as something else. And what I love about it is that she's like, It's him for sure. He must be here. I sensed it. My heart sensed him. Pei Ming, you're always like this. And this line was added. It's not in the online version. Which woman is it this time? I'm going to kill you. So she heard Ban Yu's voice and thinks poor Ban Yu is another one of Pei Ming's conquests. And I'm like, oh, honey, just like Ling Wen and Pei Ming, you could not be more wrong, right? That's the thing. But she gets so fired up and she's going to go find them. My fear is that she's going to find Pei Ming and he's going to be like, what the hell? Like, why are you here? And then Ban Yu and Pei Su are going to be like, we had no part in this, right? I freaking love it. And so then Guzzi gets to go in and work his magic, and he goes to give the mutton chop to his dad's legs. And that's when we have the whole thing about bragging. And Guzzi's like, well, is there a way to unlock it? I mean, there's no way for it to be unlocked, right? And Qirong wanting to show off is like, of course there is. And so his exact thing in the book is dog fucked Shi Lian. And I like that in the online version it shows Shi Lian ... Hua Chong ... And it says, then he pointed at a farmer and yelled, dog fucked Shi Lian. Shi Lian had no comment. Neither did Hua Chong. They both are just like, And so, because for a second when Qirong was cursing at Hua Chong in Blackwater, I was like, oh, well, maybe he's not cursing Shi Lian because Shi Lian's his cousin. He has a deep-rooted affection for him. No! It's because his curses are the curse keys are the curses at Shi Lian. I love it. And so then we have the whole thing where they recorded on the butterfly. Genius. They recorded on the butterfly and managed to use it to unlock everybody. Genius. But in the book, this translation of this last part of the chapter is amazing. I love it. Where he's just like, across the room, Qirong grabbed Guzzi to shield himself and switched his lines up a bit. Dog mounted, Shi Lian. You shameless, you're spying, you're conniving. And Shi Lian frowned glumly. What the heck is dog mounted? Well, and then what's amazing is that when he sees Hua Chong, he blurts out, again, in order to unlock the fire, he says, dog fuck Shi Lian. But to light the fire, which is the opposite, the phrase is dog Hua Chong, which suggests that he views Shi Lian as the bottom and Hua Chong is the dog that's mounting him. And and it's like, well, I just love that of all the people that know that Shi Lian and Hua Chong are together, the Windmaster is the most non-judgmental. The Windmaster is neutral. The Windmaster seems to understand all the ships, but doesn't care. Like the Windmaster seemed pretty privy to the relationship that Yin Yu and Qi Ying had back in the past, but they were like, well, you guys are just friends, aren't you? Okay. And the Windmaster seems pretty privy to, well, Hua Chong and Shi Lian, you guys are together, aren't you? Like, they're very neutral. There's been like 4 technically, that seem to understand that Shi Lian and Hua Chong have a distinct relationship. The Windmaster's pretty neutral about it. They're like, Qirong knows it and is disgusted by it and is like, what is this? Nah. Pei Ming knows it and revels in it and is like chief of the fan club. And Junwoo knows it, but is acting like he'd rather not. He's kind of neutral. And I guess Feng Xin and Mu Qing maybe know about it, but they're kind of ignoring it too, right? They're kind of ignoring it too. So the Windmaster's pretty neutral. Qirong hates it. Pei Ming loves it. So it's like, it just from there. But that is the best in the world. I can't. And so then they managed to get the fires all taken care of. And then he's like, you can all die together. And then what do? They turn him into a Daruma doll. And I love the Daruma doll has like the painting on it is like his teeth bared, his eyes rolled back, a tongue like a snake-like tongue coming out. And Shi Lian's like, nobody's gonna want to play with that. Good. And then he gives it to Yin Yu and is like, put this far, far away. Get this out of our sight. So yeah, I'm ready for Qirong to either be taken away by Yin Yu and the Rainmaster, maybe in the next volume or in the next several chapters, whatever is going to happen, or he's going to be kept with them, and it's going to be chaos on Mount Tonglu when he shows up. But I don't think... I don't think that he's going to Mount Tonglu, though, because here's the point, too. If Qirong went to Mount Tonglu, only one can exit. So... But then what happens with Shilian and them there? I don't know. So I feel like if Qirong went to Mount Tonglu, he'd have to die or become a supreme. And Shilian, he hates Qirong, but he's family, so he doesn't want him to die. So maybe he'll go off with the others. I don't know. I only think that the Rainmaster is coming in the next chapters or in Volume 6 because we're getting close to getting to Mount Tonglu. We are super close. So something's going to have to give. We've got to get some of these people that don't need to be at Mount Tonglu. We've got to get them out of here. And then the Rainmaster would be a nice Deus Ex Machina for that. So, but I don't know. I don't think we're getting to Mount Tonglu in the next set of chapters. I don't. We only have 3 chapters next week. And I don't think we're getting to Mount Tonglu yet because we still had like a day at least to travel. We'd only been traveling like at the most a day of 2. So we still have another day of traveling. So we're not there yet. So we may or may not meet the Rainmaster next week. It may be that we just catch up with Pei Ming and see if they've run into Xuan Ji yet and what we're going to do about that. I don't know. I'm just, But this whole thing with planning the memories is fascinating. I don't know what we're going to do with that. I guess we're going to put in here, we're going to add the memories to our board. Why not? Why not add something else, into it all? But yeah, I'm so curious what's going to happen. So I don't know if I'm going to wait or not. I don't know if I'm going to wait or not for the next set of chapters. I guess it will depend on how far I get with everything else with reactions on the channel. But maybe I'll wait and see what the comments for this next set are and then go ahead and get the manhwa for next week. Chapter 93 of the manhwa and talk about it alongside the other one, but I don't know. Or I'll start Volume 6 off and we'll have 2 weeks of manhwa back to back. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll just have 2 sets of manhwa back to back for the next couple weeks to start out Volume 6. I don't know. But what I do know is I'm really excited to hear your comments down below. I hope you all enjoyed this chapter set. Please no spoilers, hints, or clues, but next week we're ending Volume 5. This volume has been a journey, and I'm really excited to kind of go over and review it with y'all next week. So, but in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Heaven Officials Blessing.